Football season is here. Yay! I guess. You see, when I was young and stupid, as opposed to now that I'm middle-aged and stupid, I made a big mistake that has haunted me for my entire life. I became a fan of the New York Jets. I was 6 years old and I saw a game on TV and I liked their uniforms and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna root for those guys. Now I was 6. 6-year-olds are not famous for their decision-making skills. But in my mind, a mind that loved Kids Incorporated and believed in a giant bunny that brings people candy every spring, it wasn't a stretch to believe that liking this team was a good idea. Now, what made this decision even more bizarre was that I am not from New York. I am from Washington, D.C., and at the time, we had a perfectly good football team that won Super Bowls and actually had a real name and logo. I could have switched things up as a child and no one would have blamed me. I could have rooted for the same team as my dad and brother and bonded with them over the Redskins' 2 championships and casual racism. But for some reason, I was loyal. I stuck with the Jets. Well, it's been 36 years now that I've been a Jets fan, and here's what I've gotten for my loyalty. 3 lost AFC championship games, 0 Super Bowl appearances, the longest playoff drought of any NFL team, 10 years, 12 head coaches, 16 starting quarterbacks, and 1 butt fumble.
He ran right to the back of Brandon Moore, fumbled the ball.
They are the laughingstock of the professional sports world. They are so perpetually bad at football that to say they shit the bed on an annual basis is an insult to. This team makes me want to eat a handful of fentanyl. Now, the Jets certainly aren't the only perennially awful team in sports. The Browns are in that category, the Orioles, the Detroit Lions, the Los Angeles Clippers. But because the Jets represent America's most famous city, their suckiness is magnified. But it's strange, I'm still a fan, despite the fact that the Jets are a punchline. Jets. Just end the season. I go into every season knowing what the eventual outcome will be. It's like going to Hardee's more than once. Why do we do it? There are always Jets fans in the seats of MetLife Stadium. There are still people who watch every single game, even when the team is 1-15. Why do people subject themselves to such pain and humiliation, knowing what the outcome will be and knowing that everyone is laughing at them for their life choices? It's not rational. Do Jets fans hate happiness? Being a sports fan really is making a bet. It's making an investment with the hope that that investment will pay dividends in the form of happiness and pride at a later date. But after years of no returns on that investment, we don't sell. We hold on to it, like I should have done with Bitcoin in 2013. A lot of people like to compare being a fan of a bad team to being in an abusive relationship, in which case Jets fans are the Tina Turner of the sports world. It's really a pretty accurate analogy. A bad sports team will hurt you over and over again, but you keep coming back. Why? Because you convince yourself that they can change. You convince yourself that one day they will be a good team. You explain away your black eyes by telling your friends you tripped and fell down the stairs, when in fact you just got beat 30-3 by the Cincinnati Bengals. Then, just like the abusive spouse, every once in a while they'll do something really nice for you, like make the playoffs or nab you a top draft pick, but the next season the same old abusive team is back. It's another rebuilding year. You don't leave them. You're invested so much in the team that to leave would be to take a bath on that entire emotional investment. Besides, switching teams is like, you can't just break off a long-term relationship with a sports team. Come on, this isn't marriage. It's more like Scientology. Sports teams take your money and promise you results, but what you end up watching is about as entertaining as Battlefield Earth. People will look down on you if you just abandon your team and hitch your bandwagon to one that's already a contender. Part of sports, even for good franchises, is sticking with the team through the bad times. The problem is when the team has nothing but bad times. Now, there are great examples of cursed teams that were bad for extremely long periods of time and then finally won a championship. Most notably, the Boston Red Sox and the Chicago Cubs. That should give fans of bad teams at least a little bit of hope. Those fans waited a lifetime and many of them still didn't get to have the championship experience. That's the risk. Your team may never win a championship. You may die having spent incredible amounts of time and money on a team that never could close the deal. But if they do win, the long wait and the hopelessness and despair will give way to a temporary euphoria and the ability to buy t-shirts that loudly proclaim your team's victory. Is it worth it though? Is it worth the years of suffering for the buzz that comes with knowing that your team was the best? No, seriously, you tell me. Is it worth it? I have no idea. I'm a Jets fan. I'm Dan Joseph. Check me out on the radio on WBAL at 8 p.m. weeknights. Just say, Alexa, play WBAL.